Once upon a time, in a small Ghanaian village, there lived a young cripple called Kojo. Kojo has lived with his grandmother ever since he was little, after his mother had him out of wedlock. Despite his physical health challenge, Kojo is a very hard-working trader. He goes from village to village to sell luxurious beads to princes and princesses, and he is well known around his community as the crippled bead seller. As Kojo became successful in his bead business, he began to think of settling down, but the women he talked to all rejected him because of his physical challenge. He would cry indoors and wonder why people would judge him based on his crippled legs and not because of his heart. He decided to live his life to the fullest and hope that love find him one day. One day, Kojo was selling beads to the princesses in a nearby village when his eyes caught a beautiful maiden named Abena. Abena's beauty is likened to a shining star as everyone looked at her in admiration. Kojo was not left out as he stared at her as she walked past. The people began to gossip that she is the son of Mensa, a rich merchant who is well known in the village. Despite her friendliness, the princesses gossiped about her and called her a proud girl who is often carried away by her beauty. In truth, the princesses were only jealous of Abena because she is the most beautiful girl in the village. Ever since Kojo set his eyes on Abena, he found it hard to have a good sleep as his heart had chosen Abena and he wanted to make her his wife. A few days later, he set out to Abena's village again with the hope of seeing her. When he got to her village, he asked around and the people described the wealthy merchant's home for him. He got there to find Abena sitting outside the house making her hair. He looked at her admiringly and he couldn't explain how he felt whenever she smiled. He greeted and asked Abena if she was interested in his beads. She gave him a seat and began to check the beads. She commended Kojo for trying to earn a living despite his disability, and Kojo explained that he had been that way since he was a little child. He was only sick for a few days and he became crippled as a result. Abena felt sorry for him. She bought some beads from him and asked him to always come around whenever he has good beads to sell. Kojo was very happy that she was good to him and even interested in being friends with him. From that day, Kojo would always visit Abena from time to time and spend most of his time with her. Many times, she would go to him to sell his beads with his customers and they would talk along the way. Kojo would also go with Abena on errands and the two would talk until they get back. Kojo has tried to tell Abena how he feels many times, but he always develops cold feet whenever the opportunity presents itself. He would often feel that Abena may reject his proposal due to his physical challenge and he would decide not to tell her how he feels again. Abena also looked forward to Kojo proposing to her as she is scared of what he would think of her if she makes the first move. She knew Kojo had it in mind, but she doesn't want to be too forward. A few months later, Kojo finally told Abena that he loves her and would like to marry her. Abena's joy knew no bounds as she hugged Kojo. She told him yes, and Kojo was surprised. Days later, Kojo and his grandmother met Abena's parents and the marriage introduction date was chosen. After the introduction, the two began to plan their wedding and Abena couldn't wait to show Kojo to her friends. Many people were surprised at Abena's choice of spouse, despite being the most beautiful girl in the village, but she paid them no attention. Abena's mind was made up about choosing Kojo as her spouse, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Her father was not happy about it too, but there was nothing he could do. He invited Kojo for a private talk before the wedding. He told Kojo to take great care of his daughter, and Kojo assures him that he would always cherish her and love her as long as he lives. On the wedding day, people came from far and near to witness the wedding ceremony of the beautiful Abena and Kojo the cripple bead seller. Many people were happy for the couple, and Abena was praised for the bold steps she took. After the wedding, the love between the two lovebirds grew higher, and they soon became the talk of the community. because Kojo is always seen going out with Abena and showing her off wherever he went. One day, the couple were eating outside their home when the palace guards arrived. Kojo asked them the reason for their visit, and they explained that the king wants Kojo at the palace. Kojo was surprised. His grandmother came out at that moment and she sent the guards away. But the guards insisted that they must take Kojo to the palace at that very moment. The grandmother stood her ground and stopped the guards, but they pushed her out of the way and took Kojo away. His grandmother and Abena followed them and they kept asking them why they wanted Kojo. When they got to the palace, they found the chief sitting outside the palace. They gave Kojo, his wife and grandmother a seat, and someone began to explain what is happening to him. But his grandmother was surprised. The chief explained to Kojo's grandmother that the king is seriously ill and they need someone to ascend the throne until he gets well, and the oracle has chosen Kojo to be the one to keep the throne safe. Kojo was surprised. He asked the chiefs why the oracle would choose him out of all the children the king has. But the chiefs explained that the oracle chose Kojo because he's the first child of the king. Abena and Kojo were shocked at this revelation, but his grandmother already knew, and she wasn't surprised. But even though Kojo's grandmother knew Kojo was a prince, she told him that his two parents were dead to save his life and avoid losing him. The chief priest entered at that moment and informed Kojo that the ritual for ascending the throne would take place the next day. He asked his grandmother and wife to help him bring his belongings because they would need to lecture Kojo before the ritual begins tomorrow. Kojo had many questions for his grandma and the chiefs, but he had to wait until after the ritual. The next day, Kojo was crowned the king and the villagers were happy. According to tradition, Kojo could marry the former queens if he wishes and carry out the duties of the bedridden king until he's fit again or dead. The chiefs told Kojo about the tradition with the hope that he may decline, but they were surprised that he accepted, even though Abena was present. Kojo had suddenly forgotten the woman who stood by him when everyone else despised him, and it really hurt Abena. The queens were summoned, and they all presented the new king and husband with various kinds of gifts and kissed him on the cheek. Abena never bargained for this. It dawned on her that she would be competing with five other women for the attention of her husband Kojo, and she left the gathering hiding her face as she cried. When she got to her room, the tears continued to pour as Abena was very unhappy. That night, Abena expected Kojo to come to her, but he never did. The next morning, she met Kojo surrounded by the five queens, with each queen feeding him breakfast. Kojo asked Abena where she has been since the previous evening and he asked her to come join them. After hesitating for a while, Abena reluctantly joined them, but she told Kojo that she would like to see him. Kojo told her he would see her after having his breakfast, and Abena left for the room. The queens laughed hysterically as Abena left for her room, and Kojo did not take any offense. In fact, he joined them and they touched his body seductively as he did. Abena watched from a corner, wondering how Kojo could easily forget about her in only a few days. After having his breakfast, the queens took Kojo to the inner room and they began to massage his body and cut and trim his nails. Kojo enjoyed every bit of the moment, forgetting that Abena asked to see him. By the time he remembered, it was past noon. When he got to Abena's room, he found her lying on the bed. He asked her if everything was fine, and she began to cry. She asked him why he would neglect her totally as soon as he became a king without thinking about her feelings. She said she was surprised that he could do that to her, and it hurt her deeply. But Kojo explained to her that he did not do anything wrong. He said he was only asked to care for the queens until the king gets better. Abena was surprised as Kojo continued. It has never crossed my mind that I could be the son of a king, and all this came as a rude shock for me. I know how you feel, but I assure you that I still love and cherish you and appreciate you. I need you to cooperate with the other queens, and you will be fine. We are one big happy family. Abena asked him why he would accept the queens without thinking or seeking her consent, like other kings would do, if he truly loves her. She said he had a choice to choose between inheriting the queens or not, and he chose them over her. Abena said for this reason, she was leaving for her father's house, and she wished Kojo the best. Kojo replied that she could leave whenever she wanted, and he asked her to drop the royal beads and attires before leaving. He called her a killjoy who is not happy at her husband's success, and he left in anger. Abena cried as she packed her things and she left the palace for Kojo and his 5 queens. When Abena got home and told her father everything that happened, he was very unhappy and it surprised him that Kojo could hurt his daughter that much. Abena's friends also blamed her for marrying a man like Kojo, and she became a laughingstock in the community when people heard that she left her husband for the queens. Abena would cry many times whenever people threw subtle insults at her for her life choices and it began to tell on her. Meanwhile, Kojo is enjoying his life to the fullest and doing all he could do to be the best king for his people. He forgot about Abena as the queens fought to have his attention. Kojo was overwhelmed by the love he was getting from his queens, but he loved all the attention. A few months later, the king was declared dead and the villagers mourned for weeks. After the king's death, more women came forth with kits they bore for the king, throwing the villagers and the chiefs in confusion. According to tradition, the king's first son has to be the heir to the throne, and Kojo was not the first son, as an old maid claimed the king impregnated her before impregnating Kojo's mother. So Kojo and her son Kofi are just months apart, but Kofi was born first. Kojo was angry to hear this. He told Kofi and his mother that he was already made the king and nothing could stop that. But the chiefs intervened and told Kojo that the oracle chose the first son as the king, and they made him the king because they thought he was the first son. Still, Kojo did not accept to step down and let Kofi become the king. So the chiefs came to a conclusion. The two sons would have to undergo a paternity test to determine the true heir to the throne. On the Thursday, the villagers were gathered as the chief priest brought a staff that would glow when the true first son of the king holds it. Other sons of the king were also present, and it was determined there and then that Kofi was the first heir to the throne as the staff glowed when he touched it. Kojo fought the chiefs and refused to step down from the throne, but he was dethroned and whisked away by the guards after they tried to make him drop the crown and other adornments for the king. Kojo cursed and swore as he was taken away by the guards. They dropped him outside his home, and his grandmother calls the guards as they left. She asked after his wife, and Kojo told him that she left in anger months ago. Kojo's grandmother was very angry with him. She told him to go back to get his wife or she would not allow him inside the house. Kojo could not tell her that he did not beg for her to stay when she wanted to leave. He began to regret what he did to Abena, but he could not face her for the fear of being rejected by her. A few days later, he finally summoned courage and decided to visit Abena. He explained everything that happened to Abena and he apologized for how he treated her before. Abena said she was happy that he was dethroned because he wouldn't have thought about her if he was not dethroned. She sent him away and asked him never to come closer to her again. Kojo regretted his decisions and he beat his fingers in regret as he sat outside his grandmother's house. He knew that he had lost the woman who loved him unconditionally and he wished he had treated her right when he had the opportunity. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, press the like button and leave a comment if you enjoyed this video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.